Greetings. It's a pleasure to have you again to Insaka broadcast, and I welcome you again we are speaking from Central Africa Baptist University. Usually I am with my co-presenter Sandala Mwanje. He's not with us today, but we have a special guest that we promised would come and speak into things. Remember, we're discussing the issue or the subject of suicide. What is it? We have heard so much of that in our day and age. So our special guest is Mr. Chungu. I would ask him just to introduce himself, what he does, and a few things about himself. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sichone. Yes, my name is Chungu. Other people call me as the Uncle PC for Chungu.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a background of mental health training, clinical psychiatry in particular. Currently, I'm pursuing a Bachelor of Arts in Social Work.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been working basically in the area of health, mostly in the area of mental health, and also HIV and AIDS and psychosocial counseling. So in addition to my training in mental health, I've also done some training in psychosocial counseling.
Okay.
At the moment, I'm more or less like a freelancer person sharing information in different places where I'm called upon to do that.
Okay, now tell us a bit about your family and where you live and things like that.
Well, I'm a married man with 4 children, all of them boys. I live in Ndola.
Okay, so you're from Ndola.
Yes.
Now, Mr. Chungu, it's a privilege to have you in this on this broadcast, and the thing that we have been discussing is the issue of suicide. We have noticed a rising number of people who are committing suicide, whether they are old or they are young. And I would just like you to speak into some of the issues that I shall raise. But first of all, I would like you just to define what suicide is in your own words. I mean, just describe it. What is suicide?
I think we can define suicide in maybe using just 2 words. There is some intention and it's voluntary. This is an act where someone takes his own life. And as I've said, the key word is intentionally done, and it's a voluntary act. Yes.
Voluntary takes his own life. What do you mean by takes his own life?
That's killing oneself.
Okay.
As simple as that.
Okay. Yeah. So now, those of you I think you've done psychology. What would you say with respect to psychology? Can psychology answer all those questions as to why people would resort to killing themselves?
In a measure, psychology can answer or can mitigate the issues that cause suicide, but it's limited in a way. Yeah. Of course, there are many people that resent psychology as a subject matter, especially some of the Christian community. Anything to do with psychology is like you can't use it and so on and so on. Psychology, when you go into it, it tries to understand a human being. And so it will say certain things that are obvious. And when I look in the Bible, I actually find that there are certain things that psychology is talking about, but also which the Bible is talking about. Let me give an example. The Bible is addressing the subject matter of anxiety. And you find psychology is talking about anxiety. And depending on how much it impacts one, it can be very serious. It impacts on you negatively. For others, a good measure of anxiety, for instance, you're about to write an exam, you are compelled to study more. So it helps you to be more alert, more responsible, and so on. So psychology has got limitations, of course. It helps us. It makes an effort, except some of the solutions that psychology offers may not be appropriate generally or for a Christian. Let me give an example. Many years ago, Sigmund Freud said that we have drives in our bodies, forces. One of them is aggression, the sexual drives, and so on. And he argued that once these are not attended to, then your personality or emotion will be imbalanced and so on. So you have to raise them. Now, the logical deduction from that is that if somebody is having sexual drives, you don't have to exercise self-control. Just indulge in sexual act so that you are relieved of pain. And of course, even other psychologists were not for that. They said no. So psychology has a place, but it has also some limitations. And of course, some of the arguments of psychology are not biblical.
Okay, I wish we had time. Our point is really dealing with this grand subject of suicide. Now, the question that I'm asking is related to psychology. Some people have argued that people commit suicide for whatever reasons. Maybe they are struggling in their thinking and so on. So some even say that suicide is because it's a mental issue. So what would you say? Do you think that mental health could contribute to the many number of suicides that we are seeing now?
Well, mental health, in fact, by definition, when we're talking about mental health, we're actually talking about a positive state of a human being.
Yes, sure.
Yeah. So then we're saying, okay, we all strive to be mentally healthy.
Yeah.
But also there's an aspect where we say you have got mental ill health. And maybe let me just try to understand the definition about our health. For instance, one definition of health is that it's a state of complete mental, physical, social well-being of a person. Some authorities would also add the economic well-being. So that is healthy. Then mental health, they will say full and harmonious function of the whole personality. At least that's the old definition of WHO. The full and harmonious function of the whole personality. So when we're talking about mental health, we are talking about the person not being mentally very well.
Yeah.
There's some kind of imbalance in the way one responds to general life. You and I, we go through a lot of stresses, and over time, we begin to more or less like become weaker, so to speak. Now, probably from the time you woke up today up to now, you have gone through a lot of situations where you have had to make adjustments, psychologically, emotionally. But this done just like automatically. Okay, you're under pressure, you want to wait for the information from one of your colleagues, you restrain yourself to wait for that information. Now, there's a way in which once you don't have the capacity to hold yourself, you will be shouting, bring that information.
Later, you're delaying me.
Yes, I want to write a report and I will bring information. But you restrain yourself. Okay? Now, that's part of your mental health. Now, when we become mentally ill, we are not able to thrive as we're supposed to thrive, as defined in society as a normal behavior. And so society will be concerned about our behavior. Now, whether suicide is as a result of mental ill health, I would say...
Is there a correlation? Yes.
The correlation is this, that there is, of course, the way in which the mental faculties have given up and they are not performing the way they're supposed to perform. And so one thinks of taking one's life. For instance, here's a man that is owing somebody 2,000 kwacha. He has no source where to get this money from. And here's a person who is owing somebody 10,000 kwacha. The other person is able to explain and negotiate. He's insulted by the lender, and him as a debtor is still able to cope. Now the others cannot face that. So they look at the opportunities for raising that money and pay back is blank. Whereas the other man says, let me sleep over it. Maybe tomorrow, I'll try this and that. So the other one gives up and takes his life. There's a way in which we are saying that is the mental faculties have failed or have collapsed. But medically speaking or professionally speaking, suicide is not a mental illness per se that you can classify in a literature. You won't find that the list of mental disorders is ABC, suicide, and so on. But suicide appears as a result of underlying mental health. Yeah, as underlying mental health. And we can further argue that not all suicidal cases as a result of mental illness. There are some, yes. For instance, if a person is suffering from bipolar, and then you have this imbalance of emotions, moods, and one goes into depression, they may feel so void, very low, and they will think the only solution is to take my own life, and so they take their lives. Sometimes when others are hyper in excitement, they may probably take their own lives, but of course they will have collapsed from a state of euphoria, coming down to depression, and life is just hollow, is empty,
and they're crushed.
And then they take their own lives. So there's a way in which you can say it is not a mental illness per se, but mental illness is one of the causes of suicide. But suicide can be caused by a number of factors.
Okay.
Financial distress,
yes.
Demotion at work, frustration in a relationship, some kind of falling from grace. You were there on the pedestal and people consider, oh, this is a very respectable man in society. And then you do something very terrible. And then you just say, well, I'll collapse. I remember I saw one of your programs, the previous programs, where you indicated that, I was watching that, where you indicated that the Christians would not do that. And you indicated that you're not justifying sin, for instance, if one falls into sin. And I agree with you that definitely we shouldn't go to such an extent. But at the same way, we're not saying we are justifying sin. But what we need to acknowledge is the fact that there's a way in which your ego can be challenged. Me, whom they think about this and now. And there's a way in which, in a sense, that regulates our behavior. There's certain things I can't be doing when I'm with my children because it's like, it's not good for an adult. Yeah.
So you are saying that there is some connection.
There is some connection, yes.
But it's not the cause all the time.
No. Because it's not, you have heard maybe, like in the recent past, I saw on the social media, this young lady, I discovered from what was posted that she had been almost like crying for help. So there was some kind of void that was taking place. One posts something about life, I'm tired of, and so on, then one takes his life. Now, if you do the assessment of such a person before they take their own lives, they don't have a mental illness per se, but obviously it's a development of mental illness as a process.
Okay.
So this person actually is getting depressed. And all they needed was actually just some counseling and to have a certain worldview of life differently. So such a person was not mentally sick per se, but there are certain experiences in life.
They went through, yes.
They went through. For instance, there are people that maybe were raped, okay? And they can't just live
stomach
that.
it, yes.
Yeah. So then over time they will say, no, it's too much. But there are people who have been going about life, doing everything as usual.
We're seeing them moving around
and so on.
Yeah.
Now, they may not suffer from any specific mental entity per se, but there are these processes that are taking place. And so they will terminate their own lives.
Okay.
How about the others, a sudden dismissal from work? Can we say it's this man receives a letter from his employers and then he takes his life? Can you say he was suffering from mental illness? No. I would safely say his mental faculties at that time failed.
Failed to handle that.
To handle that. So definitely he wasn't mentally sick to suggest that he has had a mental illness, but obviously mental faculties at that particular time failed. And in that sense, we can say, okay, it's a mental
related
issue. So there's a way in which I would say, because it involves the mind, so maybe in that loose sense, it's a mental health issue.
Yeah, but it's not that they're mentally sick or something.
Yes. For instance, if you read through the book of Psalms, you find the expression of emotion there. When I'm reading the book of Psalms, I can even almost tell the emotional tones.
Yeah. Psalm 73, for example.
Yes, where you're looking at life and people are thriving and having mansions and you say, wow, what's happening?
What about me?
Yes, but the psalmist actually repositioned himself. He looked at life in a broader sense and he was solid.
Yeah.
Now, also, when you read, like, for instance, Psalm 42 and Psalm 43, and in both cases, verses 5, the psalmist repeats the same expression in Psalm 42, Psalm 45. Why are you quiet, oh my soul? Why
are you downcast? Yes.
Why are you downcast?
Yeah.
And then he provides a solution. Hope you in God. So here's a person who is undergoing depression.
Some emotional
processes. And I think I've forgotten one of the people who wrote hymns, a very powerful hymn It was written out of a situation of depression. Now, that person would have elected to take his life.
That's William Cowper, most likely.
Yes.
William Cowper.
But then, what does he do? He expresses these emotions, these experiences in a hymn. He's encouraging himself. He's not pretending, okay? He's not pretending life is okay. No, he does acknowledge that. So, and this is one of the problems that we find maybe in bipolar, where a person is overexcited. Me, I'm very happy. Do you know, Doc, me, I get worried when I come across a person who says, me, I don't have any problems. Everything is free. I actually become anxious.
Really?
Yes. Because
so you don't want us to be happy?
I want you to be happy, but more realistically. But there's no person who is absolutely 100%.
Everything is in order. And
yeah. Over 20 years ago, at an issue where I was working, I was seated in the pharmacy with my sister, chatting, trying to find out the drugs which are there before I could prescribe. And there came a man, he was maybe selling his products, and he was talking about how good life is, and he doesn't have a problem and he's happy. And then he left. And then I looked to my sister and the Lord, I said, I'm very much worried. Such life doesn't exist on earth. I'm not trying to be pessimistic, but that life doesn't exist. After a few months, I heard that this man had committed suicide at his flat where I was living. So I think we need to acknowledge the fact that when we are low, we are low. When we are happy, we are happy. And so our emotion dynamics, our emotions are dynamic.
Okay.
What we need to know is how best we can manage them.
So then, Mr. Chungu, what we are saying then, listeners, is that even through the day, we go through different emotions and we have to make adjustments. So when somebody commits suicide, it's not always that they have a mental issue, or would I say they are mentally sick, but it's just that the emotions have failed to adjust and to carry on as we can. But he also showed us that from the scriptures, especially when you're reading the Psalms, we're able to detect that the psalmist is reasoning and yet at the same time is able to find his comfort and his encouragement in God and is able to move on. And that's why Christian people, those that read the scriptures, those that are born again, those that have loved the Lord Jesus Christ, are the ones that God would help and protect. That is not to say others may not be helped. They may be, but they might fail to cope. So it's good to hear that not all suicide cases are as a result of mental illness. Now, you mentioned that young lady who was calling out for help for some time. She was giving hints. How should Christians respond to such? How would we know there's an issue? You were able to detect because maybe because of your profession, you're saying, I'm worried. How should we know? And then two, these emotions, are they delicate? And I remember many years ago, I think in the early 90s, you did say to me, you may not remember, you said the emotions are very, very sensitive, and we need to handle them carefully. I don't know if you remember that. Many, many years ago, but I remember it very, very clearly. And that was the first time I was coming across such. Would you speak into that?
Yeah, first of all, the earlier part of the question, we need to be very sensitive when we are interacting with our friends. They might be crying for help, and we are overlooking that. And so let's be on the lookout so that we can support each other. We are very much interdependent creatures. Yeah, there's no Superman in real life. Even the Superman, normally they'll have like henchmen and so on. And so it could be our pastors, they are human beings. We need to pray for them, to support them. Our elders, we need to pray for them. Our leaders, including the president, because he handles quite a lot. And there's a way in which maybe I feel, I've never been a pastor, but I think there's a way in which even a pastor a pastorate work can be a very lonely work.
Yes.
And also presidential work can also be very lonely work. And so you need people who can be close friends who can work with you and support you emotionally to make very hard decisions, I believe. So let's be on the lookout and support each other as a society, support each other rather as a society. It is observed from life I've observed, and I think some other people have also indicated the same. In our country, we are becoming slowly but sure very individualistic. so that it's just about me and my family. Another person is crying there, it's like you haven't heard. And so I think we need to be more or less so that we can pick some of those emotions and then relate to, and try to help our friends. And then, dear friends, don't be a lone ranger in your life. It's a very dangerous lifestyle. There is no one that has achieved a lot. When I was young, before I even trained in mental health, I used to get worried. Just when I was at secondary school, I don't know how I was programmed. I used to get worried when I came across a person who said, two is a crowd. Two is a crowd. Two is a what something, and then three is a crowd. Meaning I can only relate to one or two people. Okay, I'm one of those people who believe that you need to have co-friends, but I don't believe that you can only have one person and then two is a crowd. If you are that kind of a person, I suggest that we need to interact more. There could be a problem. You could have a challenge in terms of interpersonal relationships. You could have a challenge in terms of sharing your own life with other people. In normal life, we will be inconvenienced in one way or another. Okay? And in normal life, we need also to respond to other people, not only about ourselves, just about me. I don't want to be inconvenienced. Such life doesn't exist. There's a way in which God designed that we are interdependent upon each other. So really, we are very delicate creatures, yes, very volatile. Even as Christians, we still remain very volatile. I can imagine when the Apostle Paul is talking about these vessels where the treasures have been put. That imagine when you think about the gospel, it has to do with the salvation of mankind, which means if a person that is not a Christian is damned forever and ever. And yet God is using these very delicate vessels and so on. So emotions are very delicate part of our lives and so on. But they're also very good because God gave them to us so that we're able to express ourselves. I don't know. For me, there's times when I just find myself humming a song or a hymn. You're just feeling good. You're just expressing. Maybe you think about your salvation and you look at how sinful you have been. Even after becoming a Christian, you feel you are not really obeying God as you ought. And then something comes to your mind. And can it be that I should gain an interest in the Savior's blood? Died he for me? And you go into praise of God. Those emotions. So I'm saying this so that we don't look at emotions in the negative sense only, but also in the positive sense that that's how God designed us, that we need to express ourselves freely. But I also have to caution, there's some of us who say, I'm just blunt. I just say it as it is. Watch out. Watch out. Also, when I come across such people, watch out, because you injure a lot of people and you injure yourself. It's good to be frank, but remember that the people you are frank to may have different staminas
and abilities to
handle that. Others, you crush them for life. And I think all of us, we could have made a mistake in our lives, one or another. So please look at emotions, first of all, positively. That's a gift from God. But then what we are saying, that like any other gift, you have a car, you have to manage it, you have to service it. But rather, even for emotions, it's a gift to us because it's expressing
personality.
Because I can't be talking to you and then I'm just gloomy because I'm thinking about some issues, some illnesses in the family. No, the emotions have told me here now is a commercial break from that concern.
Those issues.
So these are emotions, they are regulating my behavior.
Okay, friends, we would have continued, and we are so grateful that Mr. Chungu did come to us and give us the Christian perspective on suicide. I think we must be ending here, and I would just like to thank Mr. Chungu for agreeing to come and speak to us. I don't know if you have any final words, but just very, very brief, and then we'll be done.
As an individual, make sure you have a particular community which you are affiliated or a social grouping. Don't be an island. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and see you next time. God bless you.